I do think it is part of my podcast because
I'm being held against my will here.
This was a great moment. Basically,
No.
Dr. Steve was sharing really cool stuff, and I wanted to record, and he was like, "No, you better not." And I just hit the button. I looked at him, and I hit the button anyway. And here's why: it's because, like, how I approach therapy. You had said something last session, which was, I'd
Probably
start
really important.
I'd start asking questions. I feel like if I don't respond to you, maybe then you'll stop. No, but I appreciate your attempts at humor. I think they're valiant efforts. You were like, I would try to get us back. I'd bump the conversation up and be like, so why are you asking these questions about, my religious background? Is it a question of trust, blah, blah. And trust, the reason I wanted, so the cliffhanger people, we're going to pick up where we left off. Trust is definitely a part of how I analyze therapy. Like, trust is super huge for me.
Yeah.
We've talked about this many times. Do I feel comfortable, being vulnerable in front of you,
Right.
sharing my emotions,
Right.
stuff like that? And how I learn to trust people is like, I want to understand how they think,
Yeah.
and I want to understand what they believe, and I want to see, and this is probably Alex, and this is probably why it's insufferable to know me. Haley will chime in here. She'd say, yeah, there's this. I hate that he does this. It's important for me to see what people's limits are in terms of their comfort with, like, talking about who they are and sharing who they are and what they believe and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Like-
but then therapy is a hellish experience for you because you don't get that.
Not well, and I'm not talking about like total, hey, here's who I am, blah, blah, blah.
But see, I think you're talking about, I want a relationship with that person.
I want to know them on some level.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I think that would be extremely frustrating in therapy, unless you can find a therapist who's willing to go down that road a little bit more with you.
Yeah.
And my sense is that George has been able to do that.
Yes. And I'm wondering if maybe just, George is just a bit of a weirdo.
I don't
Is that
know.
what you're saying,
No,
Dr. Steve?
Not at all. I'm saying that he has a comfort
just
level
kidding.
with how much he wants to open up to you.
Can I ask why? Is that because based on from your experience as a practitioner, the school of thought and the teaching is to not approach it that way with patients, or like
to not approach what?
like wanting to establish some kind of relationship,
No, not necessarily. I mean, you have to build rapport, right?
Yeah.
If I don't, there's one of the theorists in family therapy talked about joining. If you don't join with your clients, if you don't join with that family, right, in family therapy, then you're out of luck. You will have absolutely no ability to connect and push them and challenge them. Like, if you don't respect what I have to say, why would you entertain anything that comes out of my mouth?
And that's
Right.
kind of what I'm talking about, just a little bit further.
Right.
And you think
So
it
where
will
is
be
the
hellish.
line? So like, where is the line between joining with someone and joining too much?
Yeah.
So how much do you need to know to feel like, okay, this guy's okay. I don't mind kind of bearing my soul, and I think that's a risk everybody who goes to therapy takes.
Mm-hmm.
How much am I going to open up? And
Yes.
I think I shared with you in my early training. A woman came in after the fourth session and said, "Look, this is not the name is not really the name I gave you is not really not my name.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here. I'm going to tell you my life story. I didn't want you to know everything about me.
Yes.
So I realized that from day one, every client that I'm meeting with is sizing me up, kind of getting a feel. Is this a guy I can trust? Is this somebody that I can open up to, or am I not going to open up to him?"
And
That's why humor is something, like, especially for me, because I try to make people laugh all the time, and I always, so it's a big part of me that I have to silence in therapy, because my preference would be to make jokes all the time.
where I could, like, I think there have been times where I've said something that was like, I was sharing something and you made a joke and I was like, okay, that's funny, but like,
Not while we're here.
Yeah,
Not what I'm here for.
the reason being is like, okay, does he not take it seriously, or is it because it's a trivial thing and I shouldn't be concerned about it?
Yeah. What else is he trivializing?
Yeah.
What else does he think is a joke?
Yeah.
It's very dangerous for me, and I grew up in a family where humor was the currency.
Uh-huh. You'd think with all that practice you would have mastered it. I know where the button is. That's my
And
favorite part.
we're done.
That's time. That's time. Well, that was time flies. The thing I was going to say is, no, I forget because I made that awesome joke.
Was it?
Yeah,
Was it
was
awesome?
equal parts trust. Oh, where I get like, I think a tick that I have, much how you're like, I have to silence my humor, my desire to want. I get like, like I fidget internally when there's something I want to ask, but I feel like I can't because the person will be offended or something like that.
Yeah.
Like I want to just be able to blah and let the unfiltered Alex out because I feel so much pressure every day to filter myself so much. I look at therapy as a place where I can just say whatever.
You should be able to.
And that sometimes is like questions and,
but you should be able to do that.
it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to answer them.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, I think I would feel better knowing that, which is, here are the rules. Ask whatever. I'm not going to care. Just might not answer them because it might not be the best use of our time. It might be,
I mean, in my training, we go through, like how much self-disclosure is okay. Like, do you need to know that I have kids? Do you need to know what I name my kids? Do you need to know where I live? Do you need to know, like, what do you need to know about me when you ask? And do you have kids? Are you married? Like some people
what
are
are
like,
you really getting at?
yeah, what do you want to know? And I get
Yeah.
that. I get that there's this sizing up process. But like I said last session, there'll come a time where I'll be like, hey, we're doing an awful lot of talking about me, and where is this going, and what does it do for you?
Yeah. So
And what do you need me to be?
Yeah.
And so what if I don't have kids?
Yeah.
Does that mean I don't know squat about parenting? It might mean that. What if I'm not married and I'm giving you relationship advice, or what if I'm divorced and I'm giving you marriage advice, right?
Mm-hmm. I think I haven't considered, implications wise, we sort of touched on this the first time, and it's me feeling comfortable knowing that I'm not getting sort of really subtle Mormonism baked into podcast therapy.
You probably are at some level, but
yeah.
wow, the subtlety of it, I don't know.
Yes.
But you may also be getting University
In Minnesota, God forbid, University of Minnesota.
Canadian Steve. Like I'm Canadian, right?
I think I made that joke too. It's like, oh, it's the Canada thing that I was picking up on.
Yeah.
But like
you have to be at some level, but
it's helpful to contextualize it with like you're getting a lot of other things.
you're getting
too.
all kinds of things because you're getting me.
Yes.
You get the me that shows up in this chair. Yeah. You get the me that had a fight with my wife this morning, or didn't have breakfast, or is feeling kind of gassy.
Yes. I get that.
All those things are wrapped up in it, and I still have to temper my personhood with, I want to bring it, but I need to temper it with my code of ethics and an agenda that is exclusively about you.
Yeah, which that's a lot to manage. It's like the complete opposite of what I want to achieve. Therapy, right? Which is
Let go.
Yes,
right.
Everything 100% authentic Alex. Basically, like I look at therapy as recess for my soul, or and
that's great. I have a colleague who writes about that therapy is an endeavor of moral consultations. That people bring their moral problems. Should I do this or should I do that? And
aren't you not supposed to give advice? That's like the number one rule.
I think we should not be giving advice.
Yeah, that's what George always says too.
I think we should be saying, well, let's see how that would play out. Let's imagine how that plays out if you were to get divorced, or if you were to decide to break off all ties with your parents or your child or something like that.
What would you be afraid of? What would you be nervous about? Why?
Yeah. What is the logical conclusion of those actions? And that's why I think a client would come to this space to say, I need to talk to somebody without getting an agenda. I need someone.
Yep.
I need someone's agenda just hear me out.
And my whole thing is like, I'm going to try to work through this. That point you made, very important. I want to make sure I'm not getting an agenda. And I think what's working against you is the stigma of being in a religion that I have. Like, I have a stereotype of you based on what I know about your religion. And I think I have an irrational sort of like, okay, there's might be an agenda here.
Yeah.
Now, I override that thought based on my interactions with you and my experience, but there's still that voice that's A, equal parts A, curiosity, and B, a little like
Suspicion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cynicism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. I mean, I don't care. I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it should be that way.
Yeah. And to your point, there's clearly a difference between, okay, Alex is just like, eating popcorn, asking questions because he's curious. It's like, is this actually related to something?
Things he wants to work on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can appreciate that. I could easily get distracted by just asking you, a ton of questions. But
right.
That's not related to my mental health journey. It's just more so my curiosity.
But it's like you said, it is and it isn't, right? It's like if it's about trusting me,
being able to trust you.
If you feel like you're somehow getting preached to this whole time, you may decide that's not what I was signing up for in my counseling. I do not want someone to preach to me.
No, I would have snuffed that out real quick. I feel like
if you had experienced that, you definitely would have. You'd be like, not the guy.
Because I've run into therapists. We've talked about this, the one session I got kicked out of. I mean, when someone's got a hard line that's like, oh, no matter what, under no circumstance would I entertain anything crossing this theoretical boundary.
Yeah.
I just immediately start like poking at it and pressing it and like reasoning with it. And just some people cannot handle that at all. And I can snuff that up pretty good. But I'm kind of a little shithead, honestly, sometimes. Because a lot
that would go on my notes.
Yeah, I mean, humans are humans, and but yeah, I definitely don't get that vibe. Again, it's just you're only the second Mormon I've ever met. So
yeah, and if it kept coming up, there would come a time when I would say, Alex, this might be a bigger problem for us. This may not.
Well, what does it represent?
This may not be a good fit. I don't even think.
I see what you're saying.
I think I would say I may not be the guy for you.
Yeah,
because we spend more of our time talking about me and my faith tradition or my religious beliefs than we do about the stuff that's going on with your family. And you're coming here and you're paying a fee to come and sit in my office to really ask questions about my religiosity, how religious I am, or how
worth it. Fair trade-off.
Yeah. Well, the word I was looking for is how observant I am in my religious convictions.
Yeah, your faith. No, I again, there is related to our work, and then there's just extracurricular questions, if you will. It's like I'm just curious, and I can temper those ones, and just do my own research, stuff like that. But it's fascinating. I'm not gonna
still have questions.
Yeah, it's just so fast. I just feel like it gets me excited to be like, oh man, I've consumed all this media and read all this stuff, but I've never actually met one in real life. Like that's sort of how my brain's working right now. And then having this conversation with my friend who's like, hey, so just a heads up. He's almost like, here's how it's going to go down. In about 6 weeks, he's going to pull you aside and be like, listen.
So what did you say to that?
I laughed. I was like, Dr. Steve knows that I tell him to fuck off. Like, he knows. He has to know. No one can convert Alex. Not even Supreme Leader.
The gauntlet.
Yeah.
You've issued the challenge.
Yeah, there's going to be like the headquarters. They're going to be like, oh, we got him. Challenge accepted.
My hope is that you would have said something along the lines of, if he starts doing that,
Oh, yeah.
That will be the end of therapy.
Well, and like I said,
I won't go to therapy with him.
I would have snuffed it out within our first. I mean, I feel like people who oppose, is that the way to say that word? Oppose? I feel like people who exude that sort of type of thinking, you can't contain that for that long, right? You can't be that sneaky about it.
So what I'm hearing you say is people who exude kind of a dogmatic, rigid.
They're not going to be interested in hiding it
that
much. So it tends to come out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, which was my friend was saying. It's like, no, once they care for you, they want to save your soul. Yeah, that was what was funny. And that's what made me think
get that
about
taste for blood.
Yeah, it's like that taste for soul.
Sharks in the water.
Yep. And that's what, he had asked me, because he had listened to the episode. He's like, well, do you have more questions? I was like, oh, yeah, I got so many more questions. But that's why I was thinking about it. And then also, you talking about your experiences as a missionary.
Yeah, that was a good recovery.
Missionary. Were interesting, but probably not related to our work. Just more so, I personally find it fascinating.
But I think you still need to ask yourself the question: do I trust this guy?
Yeah, and I have
even with the amount of sessions we've done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Clearly I do.
You get to ask that question. It gets to be forefront on your mind, and no amount of what I've done necessarily should override if you have concerns.
Well, I think that's what's sort of scary about relationships in general, is knowing that you can develop this. And this is something that I'm experiencing right now with a couple of, friendships where it's like I find myself being in positions where I put a lot of effort into a friendship, only to find out that it really was never what I thought it was.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of, it can be scary to know that a relationship can change. Like, just because things happened in the past does not mean that they will continue in the future. So it's like, as you just stated, next week or the week after, you could say something where I'm like, okay, this isn't going to work anymore.
I'm done.
And that's sort of scary to entertain, because that would be sad, because I would feel sad to lose this, but.
Right. But my hope would be that instead of just ghosting me or just not showing up for the next appointment, which would be really weird given where we meet, that I'm here and you're not.
Where I'm in the studio. Where are you?
That you would say,
this bothered me.
Last session that we had, you said this thing, and it tapped into all of my fears, all of my frustrations, all of my prejudices against, that I hold about people who with a religious tradition or a faith tradition.
Doing that doesn't scare me too much.
To have that conversation.
No.
But that would be my fear, is that somebody would get something like that, or they find out something about their therapist and then they just ghost them.
Totally. That's why if you would have let me finish before you just stomp all over my answer, Dr. Steve, I worry that the majority of people listening would just ghost. Yeah. And I've heard people be like, I had a friend who was like, I went to a session. I think I brought this up. Yeah. They went to a session. They sat down in the chair. They didn't finish their sentence. They started bawling. First sentence they gave.
This is early on.
Cried the whole session. Never went back because they were so embarrassed. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, like, anyone listening, I think, I could never, like, there's many things I want to ask or say to my therapist, but I'm scared. And I wish I could tap into that so I could practically, from a pragmatic approach, explain how I dealt with it. But I don't even remember anymore, because I just feel pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
And like, I guess I kick it back. I don't know. I think anytime I'm afraid to ask, there have been times where I've been afraid to ask you something because I've been afraid that you'll judge me or something like that. But what I tell myself in those situations are like short-term pain, long-term gain, short-term discomfort, long-term growth. Like, just getting it out will do me better in the long run than sitting on it. And so I guess it's kind of like stepping out of a plane. You skydive. It's like, you just do it. I don't know if that's helpful, people. I'm sorry.
And pray that your parachute opens.
Kind of. I mean, it's the same thing. Like
it is. There's a leap. Sorry.
Yeah.
There's a leap of faith, right?
Yeah.
In that a little bit.
But to your point, we're on the same page. Like I encourage anyone who's in therapy, if they have something they want to ask or say to their therapist, it can be scary to critique you guys because you don't want, like I said that, you don't want to think, oh, they're mad at me. They're going to use this against me. They're
Yeah.
going to hold this grudge against me. That can be scary. I can only think of how many people are in therapy and just they don't share. People have told me, they're like, oh, I never talk about that.
I think there are two kinds of therapists at like therapists all along a continuum. And on one end of the continuum, there's the therapist who says, I'm really good at figuring out the world and I've got the world figured out. And people come to me and I help them because I've got it all figured out. That's one end of the continuum. At the other end of the continuum, I think, is a therapist who's more inclined to say, we're all kind of trying to figure this out, and I've got my blind spots, and I've got issues, and I've got things that I struggle with, and I haven't got it all figured out. I'm trying to figure it out for me. I'm certainly not going to have it all figured out for you, but I'm willing to sit here and be someone with you and ask you questions to help you try and figure your thing out. Maybe in that somewhere I figure some things out for me as well. But I see those 2 points on the continuum. And there are a lot of therapists who've got the world figured out and they are going to tell you exactly how to do your world, how to live your life. That is, to me, that's a scary thing.
Yeah. I mean, I would immediately poke that bear.
Yeah.
And like, I haven't experienced a ton of those.
That's great.
I would hope that they exist. More of you guys exist in that end of the spectrum of figuring this out together. Kind of Goodwill Hunting vibes. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
That therapist, I feel like, has those vibes where he's like, you don't seem to agree.
Me?
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
Robin Williams, it's one of the better media portrayals of therapy.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of good ones out there.
Well, yeah, it is always tough when I hear people, because like mastery in me kicks in. It's like, no, you could just pounce on that, say it, ask your therapist questions and, dig into the tough areas. But I can fully appreciate that. That can be really scary and it's easy for me to say it, but you're always better. I look at our interactions. Every time I say what I'm sort of afraid to say, I feel better afterwards.
Yeah. And what, like so for the listeners out there, if you gauge the energy from the previous session to this session, they're a world of difference.
Yeah.
And I can tell when we're not talking about the real stuff by the energy that's in the room.
Yeah.
How engaged I am, how engaged you are. If we seem to be circling and not landing, it's like, we're not there yet. We're not talking, but I'm patient. I can be here. And then we get to this moment, and whether that's a week later or whether it's the next 5 minutes, but sometimes I'll say, hey, it doesn't feel like we're talking about what we need to be talking about. We're circling, but we're not landing anywhere on anything. And you can feel the energy. And so like the last podcast we had, I would bet there are people who are like, they're just talking. What are they doing? But that's
the process.
That's part of the process. It's a plateau area. And sometimes people plateau for a long time. And they're like, I'm not going to go back to therapy for a while. Good. Don't go back until you're ready to do some work. Or just acknowledge you're in a plateau. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep my appointment, but we're not going to be talking about a lot of deep stuff because I'm not ready to talk about deep stuff yet or deeper stuff.
I'm in that ladder camp. I just can't.
Ladder.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
The ladder means second.
Yes.
So I'm just in case, that's what that gets you. I pointed at my University of Wisconsin-Madison diploma. For those who are audio only.
I thought you were talking about like when you were a kid, you went to ladder camp because it was hard for you to know how to climb up ladders.
That's not the case. We both know that wasn't the case. I would don't know if I would not trust, but like someone.
Ladder camp. I like that one.
I'm in the ladder. Can't ladder, comma can't. I'm in the ladder. Whatever.
Yeah, you're on the rise. So
people who are like, I'm gonna go once and I'll come back a year later. When I'm like, you won't ever come back. I don't know.
but that's okay too. I mean,
I think that's more mastery, Alex. Like that's my blind spot. I'm like, nope. Just show up, commit. Even if just go to once a week, just go. Like you go to the gym, even if it's hard. Even if you don't do anything, just show up. It's better than doing nothing.
that's a model. That's one way to do it.
It's not the way to do it. In
The Alex way.
it's in me in my gut. It's like, oh, that's 100% the way to do it. But
Yeah.
I understand that everyone's different, and I'm a little bit. There's not many people who will see sometimes 3-4 therapists in a week. You know.
Yeah. You got to realize that you're not mainstream.
And that's another thing I wanted to note too. It's been very fat. This is the first time in my life where I've met with different therapists at the same time. And that has been, I mean, the vast majority of my therapy, I was seeing one therapist, standard.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm on this poly therapy sort of, and it's like, it's impressed upon me how each therapist is completely different based on their perspective, their human experience shapes how they approach therapy, what they focus on, and it's been cool to get those different perspectives for me.
Yeah. And next week, Alex is going to rank order.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
There's probably, I don't think any one of us could
Power
handle that.
rankings, therapy power rankings.
Coming in at number 1.
Yeah. Sports Center, top 10. If only people cared that much about mental health. No, they do. Well, sweet. I think we can wrap it up here. I'm running low on emotional energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But to your point, again, this whole the first session might have felt like we were sort of doing the dance. I definitely have felt that in therapy sessions where it's like, George and I are sitting there in like the first 45 minutes. I don't know what it is, but I can't talk about what it is that's bugging me. I'm trying to, I'm trying to figure it out. It's like you're trying to find that pressure point where the muscle hurts.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you find it and it's like, oh, this is what I needed to talk about. And it can take a long time and it can be super frustrating.
Yeah. And that's tough because you have to balance, should I cancel my appointment? I don't really have anything to talk
you keep
about.
Saying that.
Should I cancel my appointment or should I still go? And you have a philosophy about the importance of you go anyway. I don't know if I told you this story or not, but my brother's, one of his second ex-wife, they were not together. They were at different parts of the country. And she said, I'm going to my therapy session. I have nothing to talk about, but I know that if I talk to you, it'll bring up something for me to talk about, something to be mad about in therapy. So it's like, well, maybe just don't go. So
that's so epic.
Yeah. So this idea of, your philosophy is go anyway, go to the gym anyway. Go to your nutritionist, go to your chiropractor, go anyway because you'll benefit from it. And that's a belief that you have about the value of this modality of getting your mental health needs met or trying to meet mental health needs. Not everybody shares that modality. And there's a lot of people that have come to my session saying, we probably should have canceled it because we have nothing to talk about. Or the session ends instead of going for the full hour or 50 minutes, whatever, at half hour, people were like, I'm kind of out.
I've never done that.
Okay.
Yeah.
More power to you.
Yep. And that's not just, again, it's possible that I don't respond as well to, alone Alex time as maybe people are better. They grow more with that rest, that time of rest
Maybe.
And break from therapy. Yeah.
I remember having one of my professors would say, sometimes after a really intense session, sometimes you just need to come and be in the next session. Like, if this was the place where I revealed this big thing, and I was, distraught, like the person who went and just cried the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the next session needs to be a little lighter.
Yeah.
And there's a whole conversation in therapy training world about pacing and leading. Like, how much do we just pace? And okay, this is where Alex is at today, so we're just going to back and forth and BS a little bit, and then, okay, Alex, time for the BS to be done.
Yeah.
You having this appointment. Why are we not talking about this thing that you're?
Well, that's
are you
where
avoiding it or what?
You and George are vastly different, because George is in the camp of like, you'll get there.
Yeah.
And with you, I've never heard George say that. It was like, hey, we've just sort of been shooting the shit. Like, what did you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Whereas you are in the camp of, I feel like you'd be like, okay, is this?
We've done that.
Yeah. Is this why you're here? Like, did you want to talk? So it's interesting to experience both those ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I start to think more and more about, like, I think the fact that I've been seeing the same therapist for so many years is a unique situation. And it's probably vastly different than what other people's experience is like.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know that that's vastly different. I mean, I've got clients who have seen, they come to me for couple stuff, but they've seen their individual therapist for years. And they say, yeah, I've been served really well by my individual therapist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just feel so bad for, like, not feel bad for it, but my friend, like, clearly had more to say, and they just never went back. And when we talked about it, I was like, oh my gosh, I totally hear you. That would have been so intense, but, like, trust me, just go back.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be intense, but in the long run,
yeah,
you'll be so glad you did. And it's just like, yeah, you can't, that's how I'm dogmatic,
Yeah.
Like, I care about your soul. Please go to therapy.
It's your religion.
Yeah. Yep. That is kind of fascinating. We're not so different, you and me, Dr. Steve.
That's got to be from Austin Powers. That's something Dr. Evil says to Austin Powers.
We're not so different, you and I.
Right?
Yes.
I get it?
That was sort of, not that specific film, but that was definitely, like, the villain. That was the vibe I was going for there.
Yeah. Okay, so are you the villain in this?
It is, I don't know. I hadn't thought about that until it is kind of fascinating
that to Mr. Bigglesworth.
None of my Gen Z audience is going to get that reference.
They won't?
No,
it's unfortunate.
It is kind of interesting for me to think about that. That is sort of, I almost am a little fanatic the way I treat therapy. And I definitely impress it upon, like, Haley. I try to be a little bit more,
You established a podcast about
it. Yeah.
Not just about therapy. You wanted to be in it. So you're trying to save other people's souls.
This is sort
Who's
of
the Mormon now?
This is what's going through my head right now. It's like, it's kind of mind-blowing. Yeah,
Preach.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yep. And maybe in a weird, I don't know how subconscious that would be, but is that why I'm so curious about it or something like that? I don't know.
Lots to chew on for next
time.
time.
Yeah. Man, yep. What is it? We hate in others what we see in ourselves. But I don't hate.
Is that also Austin Powers?
No, that's like that's what therapy is always saying.
Probably Nietzsche or Kierkegaard.
Exactly. A lot for me to chew on. Well, on that note, everyone, keep letting me influence you, and
and I pray for your soul.
Yeah, and
May
stay
God
happy.
Have mercy on your soul.
Yeah, man. Huh. Yep. Hey, do whatever you want. Don't go to therapy. Go to therapy. It's all good.
He doesn't mean that.
Just don't go to church. Whatever you do. Nah, I'm just kidding. You can go there too. It's okay.
As long as it's therapeutic. You get therapeutic moments anywhere, right?
We talked about that. A lot
early
of people, the institutions are meant to replace therapists or whatever, right? You were saying
the other way around. Therapists are meant to replace institutions.
Yeah, but
people usually got this stuff at.
You were saying there were a lot of religions that were like, you shouldn't go see a therapist. You talk to your clergy or you talk to your priest. Like,
Yeah, I mean that was the
mode.
That was the mode
back in the day.
We've actually encroached.
Yes.
We mental health professionals have encroached on the
Yeah.
on the land that was formerly owned by clergy.
Which that adds another layer of weirdness. Are you just a modern day preacher?
To be continued.
To be continued. Wow. Okay, everyone. Thanks. See you. Stay happy. Bye.